while we're still waiting for 4 o'clock, we can do some brief introductions.
All right.
Okay, I believe we have undergraduates on this call as well as graduates too. So we're going to go accordingly in this order. So your name, your school, department, that's if you're an undergraduate, your side hustle, if there's any, then if you're a graduate, what you do or what you're intending to do, then your expectations in this Zoom meeting. So I'll start first. I'm Alice Chineye, chemical engineering student, Federal University of Technology, Owerri. I'm currently on my 6 months internship training. So I'm a podcaster as well, a voiceover artist too. Well, my expectations, I'm expecting a very amazing meeting, awesome meeting, so much value. After this meeting, all of us, I want to go and chill with the big boys. US. Wherever the case may be, opportunity, I'm going to be able to go around 10 persons till 4 o'clock. Yes, so okay, let me randomly pick anybody to please introduce themselves, what you do, and the rest of them, your expectation. Thank you so much. Okay, Juru Levy, can you kindly unmute and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chineye and Lozie. I am
Yes,
Du Levi. I'm Du
Okay.
Levi Odnakachuku,
Okay.
a fresh graduate of Electrical Electronics Engineering from Federal University of Technology, Owerri.
Oh, that's nice.
Currently, like I said, I'm out of school, and
Okay, yeah.
I'm into CCTV, solar system, intercom, and all sort of renewable energy stuff. So that's what I do for the moment. Yeah, and I'm
nice.
one of the co-founders of the Flourish Integrated Circuit.
Nice. So what are you expecting from this meeting? What are your expectations?
Okay. Wow. I'm actually expecting Mr. Pascal to try and open up to us on how he got a scholarship opportunity, and then try as much as possible to review the secret things required to apply for a scholarship and all that. That's why I'm here. Hope you can hear me clearly.
So much. I hope your expectations will be met during the course of the meeting. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, the next person I'll be picking. You're welcome. Thank you so much too. I'll be picking Emezim Victor Chukwebuka. Please, can you kindly unmute and introduce yourself and your expectations? I mean, like we went through the order, so you can just do as that.
All right. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. My name is Amazing Victor Chukwemeka.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I'm currently a 400 level student, or will I say final year, because currently I'm in my 6 months IT.
Abio.
Exactly. Mechanical engineering.
Yes, so okay.
All right. What next thing? So I'm currently looking forward to seeing Pascal. Hello?
I can hear you. Go on.
Okay, I'm currently looking forward to seeing Pascal telling us more about international scholarships and how we can go about that, the criteria involved and everything. Just what makes it more successful when, registering.
Kelly Drake, please, can you kindly mute your mic? Kelly Drake, please, can you kindly mute your mic? Please, kindly mute your mic.
Hello?
Sorry, go on, Imogen.
Okay, I said I look forward to seeing Pascal
Okay.
talking more about international scholarship, the criteria
Yes.
involved, how we can go about that.
How about
That's just
you're 27?
basically, I hope this video would, I mean, this Zoom meeting rather would be a more successful one. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Imogen. I hope your expectations will be met.
Hola, na film. I had again online.
Kelly Drake,
Sir, good evening.
please.
I am.
You were well. Go on. Introduce yourself, please.
Okay, I am Eju Akelechuku. From Imo. We just graduated from Federal University of Technology.
Really? Oh.
Yes. From processes and office. And I'll be looking forward to seeing my once roommate back then in school, Mr.
Oh,
Pascal.
that's so nice. That's so nice. Well,
Yeah.
that's so nice. Okay, so that's your expectation. You want to see your mates.
No.
What's your
You
expectation?
did ask me of my expectations now.
Oh, I did. But your background was
Okay, you just asked me to introduce
okay. Yes, but
myself.
I asked initially, what's the expectation? Yes, introduce yourself, and then what are expectations?
My expectations. In fact, there are plenty,
Yes.
but one of the most important about my expectation is that I want to honestly to study abroad. Honestly, I want to study abroad.
You want to study abroad?
And, yes, of course, to further my studies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice one. Thank you so much, Kelly Drake. And please kindly mute your mic, please. After this, please kindly mute your mic.
Okay.
Mute your mic. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Well, we're still waiting for our organizer to come online. He's having network issues though, connecting. So we're still going to be going on and on with the introductions and the rest of them. So who's next? Who's Yoko? Yoko. Hello, Yoko. Okay. Sure. Okay, we're about to start now. I just got a message from our guest. So, but before I start, I'll just love us to please adhere to these rules that I'm going to say out now. And one of them is keeping our microphones muted, please, when you're not speaking. And then, please, when the guest speaker comes to speak, kindly, we should not really make the chat box very, very, noisy and the rest of them. Like, if possible, there should be zero minimal noise on the chat box because it can be distracting. And the guest speaker might find it very distracting. We're still going to have room for question and answer, comments, and the rest of them. But during the course of the speech and the lesson or the lecture, please let's do well to reduce our conversations on the chat box. Thank you so much. So I'm going to be introducing our speaker for tonight. He's none other than Amuso Pascal. But before then, let me do a brief introduction. Our speaker is, so Amuso Pascal is currently a graduate teaching assistant in Purdue University, Elemere Family School of Electrical and Computer Engineering, United States of America. He's a first-class graduate of Electrical and Electronics Engineering from the Federal University of Technology, Owerri. He was also FUTO's best male graduating student, 2017/2018 calendar year. So far, he has been able to, he was a one-time Assistant Secretary General to the Society of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, FUTO, between the year of 2014 to 2015. He was also an intern at Chris West Technologies Limited and a software engineering graduate intern at Simfix within the year of September 2015 to December 2015 and January 2019 to March 2019. He was also an intern at Slum BJ, July 2017 to December 2017, and a research intern at Danuju Resources Limited, September 2018 to March 2020. He's the founder of the following Intern Hub, which is a hub that trains students on digital skills. He's also the founder of 360 Leadership Forum. I'm sure you're in photo because I've heard of these things. Startups or brands I'm talking about. A community that tries to transform students and youth into effective leaders. He's also the founder of the Next Step Forum, a community of high-flying graduates interested in kickstarting a successful professional and entrepreneurial career. And lastly, before he left for his studies in the USA, he worked remotely as an Android developer at 2019, June 2019 and March 2020. Please, without no further ado, can we welcome Amosu Pascal to the virtual podium? Let's put our hands together for him, even as he comes to the virtual podium. Thank you so much. Amosu Pascal, the floor is yours. Let's thank you so much.
Hi, how are you doing, everyone? Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're attending this call from. Can you see my screen? Okay, scratch that. Okay, so how are you doing, guys? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, can you guys see me? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's great to be here with you all today, and I know the expectations are high, very high. That's how it's supposed to be. So I'll try my best to make this discursive. So I'll share a lot of points and stuff, but then I'll ask us questions, and I'll really appreciate if we respond when questions are asked, so that it's not like just the other kind of seminar where everyone is sleeping. Okay, I'm supposed to share my screen. I thought I was the admin of this call, like the host, because I created the link, but I'm not the host for some reason. So I don't know who is the host, or who was probably the first person that joined the link. Does anyone have like host accessibility? Can you check if you can share your screen?
Let me
Actually,
check.
I can log in as a host.
Yeah, I'm seeing check context. Okay, no, I can't.
Who is talking? Odin Akachuku.
I can't.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you say you can log in as a host.
Yes, I've seen the settings, the option in my settings.
Oh, okay. Maybe you're the one that's joined. Okay, allow everyone to share screen. Go to share screen, and there should be an option to allow everyone to share screen.
Let me see. Log in as host.
Where is this thing? Misbehaving.
Okay, everybody can.
And for some reasons,
I'm trying to reach out to Shopco, but I don't know.
he's not on this call.
Okay.
He's not on the call. I think he has network issues. Next time.
Okay, give me a second. I think I've seen the host key, and there's somewhere I can input the host key.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, Shopco.
I think. Sorry, there's no need. I think I've gotten it. Yeah, I'm the host now. Cool.
Okay, bro.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for this little what would you call it now? Okay, and then I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
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 Okay.
Yes, yes.
So thank you very much for the introduction, and I thank all of you for being here. When David told me about his plans to organize a program like this, I really liked the idea. Honestly, like between September and December last year, there were a lot of these kind of programs that were organized by various persons. Even Twitter spaces were being, everyone was organizing. It was as if once you get to the US, the next thing on your bucket list is to go and organize or feature in your own graduate school information session. You get so, but the problem with that is that really, if by September or October you don't know anything about graduate school application process, I really don't know how much attending sessions at that point in time is going to help you. Like for that particular, because the application season opens by September and closes by December, January. So it means if you are targeting applying by September this year or by fall this year, that between September and December this year, you should start from January to actually start making the necessary arrangements so that you'll be ready by that time. So if you are learning about some of these things in September when the applications open, the probability of you getting the required documents and everything ready, like, is very slim. So when David told me about this opportunity, I think I liked it because of the timing. It's in January. It will give any of you who is interested in following up, it will give you enough time to actually like implement a lot of what we'll talk about today, and hopefully I would want to hear the success stories later on. So yeah, so with that, today we'll be talking about accessing graduate school opportunities. My experience is mostly US based because most of the schools I applied to were in US, and that's where I got the years I needed. So if this was being done by someone who is studying in Europe or Canada or Australia or UK or any of such countries, some things I say here will be different. But that notwithstanding, I strongly believe that there are some basic things with the graduate school process that is common across everywhere. For example, you must write a statement of purpose. It's just so basic that whether you are applying for any, even if you're applying, except Nigerian scholarships, probably, I don't know if they are asked for statement of purpose, but for most opportunities you're applying for, people really want to know why you are applying for this opportunity. Okay, so most of the things we'll discuss here would really be relevant to everyone. Are we together?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second. I think I missed something. I would end the show. I will stop sharing my screen for a moment. Can you still see my screen?
No.
Hello? Okay, cool.
No.
Okay, cool. I think I missed something. Yeah. There's a slide I was supposed to remove because of time. And I just want to be sure I removed it. Okay. So let me share my screen back. Okay. Hopefully, I hope we'll be able to complete, like, finish this session before the Nigerian match starts. I believe that's one thing that people told me about before I even started this program. Okay. Okay. You all can see my screen now, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we
cool.
can.
Yeah.
Okay, so within the period of this, we'll be looking at the opportunities landscape. We'll be discussing scaling standardized examinations, GRE, TOEFL, IELTS, yes. We'll talk about writing your statement of purpose. We'll talk about identifying and contacting prospective supervisors. We'll talk about other application requirements like your transcript and your international passports. And if there is time at the end, I'll still share a little bit about what graduate school really is like. Is it what you think it is, or do you really know what it is actually? I feel it's going to be important in helping you make your decisions. Each of these items I've listed here, I deem them important, and they were mostly what people always ask about. But then I deem them important because these are what makes somehow your application process. Within the period of this webinar, I will not just be giving us some random talks. I'll be sharing what I call strategies, like guidelines, things I did and things I will tell you to do from now till you get your admission. Are we together?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go. So the first one, like exploring the opportunities landscape. People say that graduate school opportunities, they are everywhere. And that's the truth. They are everywhere. But really, to get any particular one, you really need to know what you actually want. If you're interested in pursuing graduate school in Europe, the way you go about it is different from if you're interested in America. It's different from if you're interested in Canada. Are we together? So it's very important I think the very first thing any of you should do, it's going to be difficult at this point because a lot of you don't really know what you want. But honestly, even before I go to the US, I never really knew for a certain what I wanted. But it's something that if you can figure that out, or if you can claim to want something and work towards that one thing, it limits the thing. So instead of you trying to think about how to target the Canadian application process, US application process, Europe application process, you know that, okay, I want to school in Europe. You can tailor everything you are doing towards Europe or towards America. It's much more productive. So in this session, I'll be discussing about the various opportunities. I'll be telling you about the differences. Why do some people choose to go to UK or America or Canada or Australia or Finland or Hungary or Germany or Russia or any of those countries, right? So, and I think it would all start with the question, what exactly do you want? So the first is, what degree should you go for? Master's versus PhD. I'm pretty sure if we had the time and I did a little bit of survey to ask you what you would want after, what kind of graduate school would you want, master's or PhD, I'm very sure 90% of persons on this call would select master's. True or false?
True.
Okay.
True,
Sir.
Yeah.
True.
But there are a lot of things that actually affect what you would want. Are we together? Okay, so I'll start first with explaining the difference between a master's and a PhD. A PhD is not just another degree. It's not just an advanced degree. Those of you that know me know that I'm doing a PhD in the US. But actually, the US has what we call direct PhD, which is more like a master's and PhD combined together. So it's not just a straight PhD. A master's degree typically is used to give you more in-depth understanding of a certain field. So let's say, for example, you are doing a master's degree in software engineering. The goal is for you to take courses that are related to software engineering. And probably at the end, you will do a project, or the project can be industry-based or research-based, that uses most of what you've learned related to what software engineering. On the other hand, a PhD is just research. In a PhD, you are not trying to you're not just trying to learn, you're not just trying to get in-depth knowledge of a field, you're trying to contribute to that field. So if you are doing a PhD in software engineering, or let me say in a specific area of software engineering, for example, software testing, you are not just trying to learn how people currently do software testing. At least mute. I would appreciate if we all mute ourselves. There's someone who is. Okay. I had to mute everyone on the call. Okay. So on the other hand, in a master's degree, let's say you are interested in a master's degree in software engineering, you are typically going to learn the process, like what's already existing in software engineering. You're going to learn the best ways of carrying out the different processes of software engineering. On the other hand, in a PhD, you're not just learning about the best processes, you are contributing to the best processes. So typically by the end of your PhD, you would have made a significant contribution that other people will learn about later in the future. You get? So these are two broadly different degrees, which a lot of persons don't know about. Now the question, what degree should you go for? I would answer this question later on when I'm talking about different countries. But generally, what's ideal is not usually what happens with Nigerians, because I think for most of us, okay, let me not say, for most persons I've met, the greater motivation is that they want better opportunities. And if PhD is easier to get than master's degree, then they go for a PhD. That's the truth for most Nigerians I've met. You get? So next is, which country should you target? I'll talk a bit about the different countries you target, together with what are the opportunities and funding types in these countries. Okay, so let's take it like this. I will separate the countries available into 4: US, Canada/Australia, UK, and then Europe. These are the common destinations people pursue for graduate schools. I'll try to explain the differences between these destinations. The differences in terms of the opportunities that are available there. Yeah, the funding opportunities that are available there, basically, and the programs that you typically want to pursue in those. So I'll start with UK. UK is very popular for Nigerians. The reason is very simple. UK gives 1-year master's degree, and it's very cheap. With 10,000 or 15,000 US dollars, you'll be able to get a master's degree in UK. You may not be able to afford it, but there are a lot of Nigerians that are able to afford it. So a lot of Nigerians go to UK. So really, if you have between 10,000 to 20,000 US dollars, you'll be able to get yourself a master's degree in a very good UK school. So most persons that go to UK, actually go there because they can pay the school fees. But then that notwithstanding, there are a lot of scholarship opportunities that are also available in UK. The most common is okay, so I'll put it this way. UK schools typically hardly give scholarships for UK schools. They hardly give full scholarship for master's degree the way US schools does. You get, in UK, a master's degree is typically needed before you can do a PhD in UK, and the fundings are usually being given to the PhD students. So for master's degree, most times it's difficult to get funding from a school, except probably you are the very best from your undergraduate. You had like a very high 4 point something. Your SOP was very sterling. Some UK schools have like a scholarship program where they offer scholarship to like maybe 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 Africans. But to actually get into those that program, you need to be very, very competitive. Like, yeah, very few. So because of that, the opportunities in UK are not school-based. The opportunity in UK are program-based. So there are scholarship bodies. We have Chevening Scholarship, we have Commonwealth Scholarship, we have the MasterCard Scholarship, we have other scholarship opportunities, but these are the three major opportunities in UK. What scholarship bodies mean is it's just like Abami or Chevron or PTDF. Yeah, there's also PTDF in UK. So it's just like that. What it simply means is you apply to the Chevening Scholarship as well as applying to, let me say, University of Nottingham or University of Reading or Leeds University. And when you get admission from Leeds University, if your application to Chevening Scholarship is successful, then Chevening will pay for your Leeds admission. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
It does.
So that's UK typically.
Yes, sir, it does.
So if you're interested in UK, your focus should not just be on to get admission in UK is very simple. It's the simplest that you can apply to a UK school today and you get admission before next week ends, but no scholarship. That's the problem you get. So for people that can afford the money, $10,000 is just what, 5 million. A lot of persons, like their parents can provide 5 million for masters, right? So for people that can get that kind of money, they prefer to just go. And UK, there's no problem with visa, there's no problem with immigration. If it's close to London, there are a lot of Nigerians or blacks there, so you typically be at home. So that is one reason why a lot of persons prefer UK. Let's talk about another country, US. US is slightly different. A typical school in Europe, in UK, the school fees is not up to 20,000 US dollars. The school, and then in UK, masters is just 1 year. So with $20,000 or $10,000 or even $5,000, I once got an admission in UK. What they asked me to pay was $6,000. That is 3 million, and it's just a 1 year masters. So you pay 3 million for a 1 year masters, and you are done with your master's degree. Honestly, this life not supposed that. I just say some of us we know being get money. On the other hand, in US, the school I'm currently attending, the school fees for international students is 35,000 US dollars for 1 year, 35, and masters is 2 years. So to actually do your masters here, you need like 70,000 US dollars. That's like 35 million. If you consider the fact that the cost of living in the US is much higher than the cost of living in fact, estimated living expenses plus tuition for 1 year in my school is like 50,000 US dollars or more. So it means that for a 2 year master's degree, you need like 100,000 US dollars. But then the thing with US is that US schools give like a lot of fund. The schools give a lot of funding to masters and PhD students, much more to PhD students. But then if you are pursuing a master's degree and you have a very good profile, I know people that have gotten opportunities in US like for master's degree. So the reason why a lot of us pursued US is because in UK, for example, 8,000 persons last year from Nigeria, 8,000 persons applied to Chevening for Chevening scholarship. Guess how many were selected? Just 40. 40 out of 8,000. If you do, that's less than 1%, much less than 1%. So in most of those scholarship opportunities in UK, they are extremely competitive. But if you are good, by good I mean your CGPA is excellent, more than a first class, you're able to write a sterling statement of purpose, and you're able to create, we'll talk about statement of purpose later on in this session, but you're able to create a compelling story, you have much higher chance of getting access to those UK opportunities, because as much as 8,000 persons are applying for Chevening, the number of real applications, that is applications that actually make sense is much fewer, much more fewer than 8,000. So it's very easy for your application to stand out if you have the necessary like results already. In US, on the other hand, you don't need to apply to any scholarship body. You just apply to the school directly. And a lot of schools in US offer, so there are 3 different kinds of fundings that US schools offer. The first is called fellowship. Fellowship is what you typically call scholarship, which is the school gives you admission to come and study for free. You don't pay anything. The school just pays you. You don't do any work for the school. That makes sense, right? But for you to get a fellowship, fellowships are really very competitive. On the other hand, there are other two types of funding. The other two types is graduate. They're under what's called graduate assistantship. There is the teaching assistantship, and there's the teaching assistantship, and there's the research assistantship. A teaching assistantship is typically they'll pair you with a professor that is teaching a course, and you'll be helping the professor in teaching the course. Okay, you won't actually teach, but you'll do things like you prepare assignments, you'll mark the assignments, you'd hold office hours. So if students have a problem with the course, they don't typically go and meet the professor, they go and meet the teaching assistant. And it's enjoyable because it's enjoyable because you will interact with a lot of students. A lot is expected of you, but it's enjoyable. On the other hand, the research assistantship means that you'll be working with a professor in his lab. So professors typically get money from the government or from companies to carry out research. And when they get this money, they try to employ other graduates. They try to employ students to help them do the work. In fact, the students that do the work. And when the student does the work, the professor is just there to guide the person. Whatever comes out, they like write the paper on it, get your name on the paper and stuff like that. So a research assistantship is usually given by the professor himself. So that's the easiest way to get to the US, because in that case, you don't need to typically be looking for schools. You need to be looking for professors. So a substantial part of our discussion today will talk about how do you actually access these professors. Now, the kind of opportunity you go for, to a large extent, it also depends on what you actually have. I'll be very frank with you. If your results are competitive, your opportunities are limitless. You can apply for any opportunity you want. If on the other hand, your CGPA isn't up to, let me see, a 4.0 on the 5.0 scale, or a 3.5, like you will finish with a 2.2 or a low 2.1, there are still opportunities for you. But the difference is that you can't just apply to any opportunity. Yeah, you can go and pray to God, and sure, God does miracles. I never argue that, you get. But the truth is just the opportunities you have access to are much more limited, you get. So it's very important that based on what your results are, you try to look for opportunities you have greater potentials of getting in and pursue them. Maybe if there is time, I could share more insights as to what kind of opportunities you can pursue with lower CGPAs. But yeah, there are a lot of opportunities you can pursue with lower CGPAs. Okay, we've talked too much about this section. Okay. Okay, so the last two questions I have here. Wow, sorry. The last two questions I have here: what schools should you consider, and how can you start? So about school and program you would consider, I would say, a second. Okay, so yeah, I have on my notes, like there are some factors you need to consider when selecting a program or a school, which I would just want to throw insights on. The first is when I was applying to graduate school, it was very common. Like you typically go to US News and go and look for, or Times Higher Education, and go and look for rankings of universities. And then you want to apply to schools with higher ranks. That works if you are pursuing an undergraduate study. But for a graduate school, okay, sorry, Harvard is one of the top universities in the world, right? True or false?
True.
True.
Yeah.
True, right?
True.
How many of you wants to go to Harvard? Just give me a yes or a no. The voice that is higher. How many of you wants to go to Harvard?
Yes.
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 No.
Not at
How many
all.
of you are? How many of you are? Okay. Let me start from someone.
No.
Who said not at all? Can you tell me why you say not at all? Just one person. Why do you say not at all?
Well, why I said not at all is now I know it will be highly competitive. And
Okay,
I know what I can obtain there is more or less possible to obtain in another school. Only that possibly they have not gotten up to their rank.
Let's remove the competitive part.
It's expensive. It will be expensive.
Let's say you have a scholarship. Would you want to go to Harvard?
Yes, with scholarship, I will.
Of course, yeah. If the scholarship can foot my bills and stuff, I will go for it.
How many of you have heard about the phrase Harvard engineering?
No, I've not heard of it.
How many of you know about MIT engineering?
Yeah, I know about MIT is leading now.
I've heard about the phrase.
You know, the truth is I've never seen somebody doing engineering in Harvard.
Yeah, it's majorly health-related courses that Harvard do.
Health, business.
Business law, health. Yeah.
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is, as much as Harvard is a top school, probably top 10 in the world, or even top 5 in the world, or at least in the US, if you want to study engineering, Harvard may not necessarily be the best place for you to go to. And it's much more specific if you have a specific area of interest you're interested in. Let's say you are interested in cybersecurity. There may be much more schools that are good in cybersecurity than Harvard, despite them being an Ivy League school and one of the best in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So typically, when you are considering the school you want to apply to or the program, it's very important that you actually look for schools that are doing the program you are doing. And so it also depends on how good you are. If you see yourself as a competitive candidate, then you can shoot very high shots. So typically, if you want to apply to, if you want to do a master's in computer science, for example, the best computer science school in the world is Carnegie Mellon University. And the other very good computer science schools like Stanford, Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and some other schools. These are like the top leading computer science schools in the world. You get. MIT is also leading, but I don't think CMU is. If you're talking about computer science, CMU is better than MIT based on rankings. You get the point. So you see where, if you're talking about, for example, aerospace engineering, I think one of the best universities in the world in aerospace universities, where I am, Purdue University. Almost half of all astronauts schooled at Purdue, including Neil Armstrong. You get that kind of thing. So different schools have their areas that they are strong in and they are weak at. If you're a competitive candidate, you are looking for schools that are strong in where you are interested in studying. If you're not as competitive as having a very high CGPA or a very high GRE score, you may not be able to get into a top school in a certain field. But then it's still good to look for a school that has what they call it again, a good strength in the area you are trying to pursue. Now, how do you know this? It's very simple. When you are looking at schools, when you go to the school website, when you go to the website of the department, they usually discuss their focus areas. So when you look at those focus areas, the focus areas will typically tell you what areas department. For example, if you go to a school like, let me say, Iowa State University, or let me say Purdue University, where I am, if you go to their focus areas, you see they have like 7 focus areas. You get those focus areas will tell you, or research areas will tell you the areas that this department focuses on. You get, so it's something that you should always consider when you are selecting your schools. And then how can you start? I'll just give us some things to take note of. I think the very first thing you need to do is to start researching the different opportunities for different schools. There is this common strategy that people use, which is they use an Excel sheet, and they have like on the leftmost column, they have like the name of the school or the name of the program or the name of the scholarship, and then they have the next column where they write down the requirements. And then on another column, they write down the dates the application started the last year. So typically, if you are doing it now, you will typically be writing down, okay, what date did the application open last year? If the application last year opened 1st of September, it means that this year it's also going to open around 1st of September. And so they use an Excel sheet to actually arrange these opportunities. This is something you can start doing right from now when you are in school. Like for those that are undergraduate, you can start researching these opportunities. I've mentioned a lot of opportunities here. You can start researching them and they will help you. Okay, so let's talk about standardized examinations in a bit. Okay. Just want to look at the chat. Okay, let's talk about standardized examinations in a bit. And there are 3 common standardized exams a lot of persons plan to write: GRE, TOEFL, and IELTS. I don't know how many of us really know what these exams are about, but I'll just give us a brief description. GRE is typically like JAM. So your GRE score determines, okay, does not determine totally, but your GRE score helps you. If you get the GRE is over 340. So if you get a 320 and above, it's like you are getting a 300 and above in JAM. You have a much more, it makes your application much more stronger. And if you get below a 300 in your GRE, it's advisable not to submit that GRE result because it can only weaken your application. So typically, if your GRE score is low, below a 300, you only submit it if it's compulsory. Luckily, today, a lot of schools no longer require GRE. But I'll say this. A school like Purdue has over 1,000 graduate students, most of whom are doing masters. In a certain year, Purdue is expecting to give admission to more than 100 people with a master. In a certain year, Purdue is expected to, like, okay, not Purdue, let me say, my department in Purdue, EC in Purdue, is expected to give admission to at least 100 master's degree students. Amongst these hundreds, most of them are from Asia, China, India, mostly. And most of them are coming to pay school. They are not looking for scholarship. Okay. So, and amongst these 100, most of them are coming to pay school fees. They are not looking for scholarship. So when a school is waiving GRE, the school is not waiving GRE because of you from Nigeria. The school is waiving GRE so that more persons from China and India will come and apply to them and they'll get admission and they'll come and pay school fees. When the school is waiving application fee, the school is not waiving application fee just because of you from Nigeria that don't have money. The school is waiving the application fee so that someone from India or China would not pay application fee, would apply, will get admission, and then will come and be paying $35,000 for school fees. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, they are not waiving GRE because of you from Nigeria. They are waiving it because of that person from India. So that the person would also come and apply, get admission, and pay school fees. The essence of what I'm trying to say is that a school is waiving GRE, TOEFL, or IELTS. There are some persons that typically say, look for schools that are waiving GRE. I don't want to write GRE. Honestly, it's better you write GRE. You don't do well in GRE, and then you start looking for schools that are waiving GRE, than to, from the start, feel that you're not going to write GRE simply because schools are waiving GRE. If you write GRE and you get a high score in your GRE, it totally increases your application, your admission chances. Does that make sense?
Yes, boss.
Everybody's muted. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So GRE is like JAM. Your score is important. TOEFL and IELTS is like English in WAEC. They are English exams. You know, in WAEC English, all you need to get admission to university is to get what a C6. Anything more than a C6 is so whether you get a C6 or you get a C5 or a C4, it's going to help you get admission. You don't need to get an A1 in English WAEC to actually be able to get admission to university. So that is simply with TOEFL and IELTS. Most schools set a minimum score So the minimum score is usually for Purdue, for example, I think it was 100. For TOEFL, it's 100 over 120. So, but for some schools, they have a minimum score. So you target just getting above that minimum score for you to actually get admission. But then getting an A1 in English for it isn't bad. So if you can get it, that's perfect. But I'm just saying, most of these schools, that's just like a cutoff. You need to get above it. So we'll focus our discussion today on GRE. TOEFL and IELTS, you can reapply the techniques we'll discuss for GRE for TOEFL or IELTS. TOEFL and IELTS, for a lot of schools, they waive it for Nigerians because they know that we are good in English language. The focus is also Indians and Chinese, whose original language isn't English. So they want to be sure those people have learned enough English to be able to communicate. So if a school is waiving TOEFL or IELTS, you can choose not to write it. But take note, one of the easiest sources of funding you can get from a university is teaching assistant. In the US, is teaching assistantship. A research assistantship is being given by professors. A teaching assistantship is being offered by the department. What they call it again? A fellowship is offered mostly by the university to the best students that applied. Teaching assistantship means you have to interact with the students in English. Because of that, some departments have a cutoff. So typically, it's more like, okay, Purdue, for example, my department at Purdue would be like, hey, you can apply and get admission without TOEFL. Like TOEFL is not, or TOEFL or IELTS is not compulsory for you to apply and get admission. But for you to get a teaching assistantship, for us to give you a teaching assistantship, you must write TOEFL and get a certain score in TOEFL to get a teaching assistantship. So is one of the good things of starting now to look at university requirements is so that you can know which schools you want to apply for that are doing the programs you want and know their requirements. If the schools you're applying for are all waiving TOEFL, then you may not want to write it. But I'll still advise, if you have the money, writing these exams, it increases the chances you have access to. If you don't write them, you are typically constraining yourself to those schools that are waiving it. You get TOEFL and IELTS are complementary. You can write either TOEFL or IELTS. But I'll advise, if you are targeting a US schools, focus on TOEFL. If you are targeting a Canadian or UK school, focus on IELTS. But they are complementary. Most times, most schools ask for any of them. But TOEFL is an American exam. IELTS is a UK exam. So we'll talk about GRE. I'll talk about some tips on writing and successfully passing the GRE. Should you write the GRE? I think I've answered that. How can you prepare for the GRE? Okay, so okay, I don't have slides, so I'll go to previous. How can you prepare for the GRE? So I have some tips here which I would try to quickly go through. Jesus Christ, I can talk. Time I've already finished. So the first is get a GRE prep book. I think this is the most important part of preparing for your GRE. A lot of persons will say they want to write GRE, they want to write GRE. But, okay, let me say this. Typically, if you want to write GRE, give yourself at least 3 months to prepare. 3 months that you are very good, like 3 months that you finish with a very high first class. You give yourself 3 months to prepare for GRE. If you are a typical student that does not have a very high CGPA, you should be targeting at least 4 to 6 months to prepare for your GRE. The reason is because GRE is based on strategies, it's based on techniques. There are strategies to answer any GRE question. And you typically need to be able to learn those strategies. And it takes time to learn and master these strategies. So you don't need to have a high CGPA to get a high GRE score. To get a high GRE score, you need to devote time to preparing for the GRE and mastering the strategies involved. So the first step is to get a GRE preparatory book. I used Kaplan GRE for my own. During that time, I bought it at 3,000 or 4,000. If you go online, you see these books are very high cost, very, very costly. But as Nigerians, please go to that bookshop in that market. If you're in Aba, go to Aba main market. Go to the bookshop in Aba main market. You'll see a shop there selling GRE. I bought mine in Port Harcourt at my one market. There are some bookshops at my one in Port Harcourt. That's where I bought mine. If you're in Lagos, if you go to a typical bookshop, they are very costly. So we all know the reasons why the ones in the inside market are cheap, but because this is a virtual call that is being recorded, I won't say the reason. But yeah, you can get cheap GRE preparatory books. So you get a good, I use Kaplan, and Kaplan is good. The reason why I say get a GRE preparatory books is that these books, many of them contain the strategies for each question type in the GRE. So if we talk about verbal or quantitative, they will tell you, okay, for verbal, there are going to be 10 questions that are comprehension. There are 6 types of comprehension questions. There is the one that is trying to know this and the one that is trying to know that. There's one that is going to be multiple choice and one that is going to be this. Your aim, okay, if you see this kind of question, this is how you actually approach the question. If the question is, okay, you don't need to read the entire comprehension before you answer the GRE comprehension questions. You typically need to read the first lines of each paragraph to know what the comprehension is talking about. Then when you see a question, you know the paragraph you should go and read and look for the answer to that question. So typically you don't cram the entire passage and then you go and start trying to remember when you are answering. No, you typically see a question and then you go and look for the answer in the comprehension. So these books have the strategies that can help you approach each of these questions. That's why I would always say, just go and get a book and try. The books are very big. They are as big as this. So you need time to actually read through the book and understand each section, each strategy the book mentions. And then the books have, what they call it again, practice questions for each question type. That with the practice questions, you'll be able to actually practice the strategies that the book has taught you. If you buy Kaplan, for example, Kaplan GRE also gives you access to an online portal. The online portal also provides you an online version of the book, in addition to CBT tests, both for each question type and let me say full length. I think that it provided about 2 or 3 full length exams. Are we together? So yeah, that is the first thing. The second thing is there should be a chapter that discusses the format of the exam. So when you get a GRE prep book, the first chapter usually talks generally about the GRE exam. What are the sections in the GRE exam? How long does the exam last? How many questions are you going to expect? Try to understand the structure of the. I once met someone that said he was preparing for the GRE exam, but did not know how many questions he was expecting. And I was like, how? It's good to just have a broad idea of the nature of the GRE exam. We'll come back to why that's important, but it helps you focus your what you are preparing. Next, the next item I identified here is have like a 3 to 6 months preparatory period for the GRE. For this period, try to identify the specific times you want to, especially if you are in school or you are working, you won't have all the time in the world. So maybe your preparatory time may be like, okay, you want to spend a certain number of hours over the weekend, every week on the GRE, and maybe spend like 2 hours on some days within the week. You need to identify the times here, because if you don't devote specific times to preparing for the GRE, what's going to happen is that you keep procrastinating till June. Then you will now remember in June that you are supposed to write GRE so that you'll be able to apply for schools. And then you now try to do all your preparation between June, July, August. And then you go and write in August and you don't get a very high score. But if you start in January or February to prepare, you can prepare up to August. Then you write your exam in August. And with 6 months preparation, I promise you are going to do outstandingly well in GRE. Then the next thing I will say, once you get a book and you've identified the times you would want to prepare, the next thing is to take a full practice test. A full practice test is like a GRE exam. It lasts for 3 to 4 hours. It covers all aspects of the GRE. Like I said, if you buy something like Kaplan GRE, it provides you access to an online to these versions of the test. So you'll be able to get a full practice exam online with a Kaplan. Like if you get, I know other GRE books also provide it, but I'm saying based on the one I know. So typically, what I'm saying this is, it's good to know, okay, at the point where I started preparing for GRE, this was the score I got. So that when you start improving, you can always measure your progress as against your starting point. The second is that it tells you the area. The truth is, when you take that test, you're going to do woefully bad in it. And when you see that you've done woefully bad in it, it has this way of motivating you to be serious about the exam. Because now you have seen that if you don't prepare, you are going to do woefully bad in the exam. Does that make sense? Then as you go on, try to be like, I say review your performance. Okay. So typically, the Kaplan online copy, typically when you take a test, let me say a GRE verbal test is 20 questions, but then those 20 questions are like in 5 different sections. So the first section may have 3 questions, that kind of thing, 3, that kind of thing, but there are about 5 or 6 sections. Then also there are topics those questions come from, especially in quantitative. When you use something like Kaplan, when you are using the online copy, which you get when you buy the book, you'll be able to see your performance in each section. So typically, Kaplan will tell you, okay, for this particular topic, this is your performance. For this particular topic, this is your performance. I would always say this, when you are preparing for GRE. Yeah, Esther, you have a question?
Yes,
Hello, Esther.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, how, if you were talking about taking the online test while preparing for GRE, but you said if we buy it, so if we get it from the market, like you said in Aba, is it impossible to take this online test?
No, I'm saying, so if you buy the physical book, so for Kaplan, for example, there is a Kaplan website. When you buy the physical book gives you tells you how to create an account and activate the account on the website. So it's more like when you buy the physical book, it comes complementary with the I think the physical book gives you a code in the physical book. It's written in the book for Kaplan, so it's not like you're going to miss it. So it gives you when you try to when you create an account on the website, it asks you a question, a security question, more like a security question. The answer to that question is inside the physical book. So typically, you go to the book, a certain page, you'll see something like, okay, enter this into the box. You enter it into the box, and then it activates the online version. The physical book also has a lot of practice tests. But the difference is, if you are taking a paper and pencil-based test, it means you have to mark it, you have to analyze the result yourself. But if you are taking the same test on the online platform, once you finish the test, you see your score there. You don't need to manually mark it again. And you see what areas you did well and what areas you did not do well. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I was talking about how to review your performance. When you are preparing for the GRE, don't focus on your total score, whether you are getting 300 or you are getting 320 or you are getting 340. Don't focus on your total score. Focus on these topics and the sections you are not doing well and you are doing well. For example, when I was preparing, I know that for verbal, for example, there were questions on comprehension, and the comprehension questions also had like 3 different types of comprehension questions. And then there were questions on like your knowledge of words. I noticed that my performance was better in comprehension than in knowledge of words because, well, I don't know too many good words. So what I targeted was, okay, how do I improve my knowledge of words so that I'll be able to increase my scoring in those sections? And that made me to go and there's this application, it's called Magoosh English Vocabularies, that helps you practice. Magoosh Flashcard, I think that is your name. It helps you practice words. So typically, it shows you a word and then you select the meaning of the word and you keep practicing it and you keep learning new words every day. So I had to go and download the app and play around with the app for some time. And when I was playing around with the app, I started noticing that I was learning words such that when I now see a question in the verbal GRE verbal, I know the meaning of the word, and then I can answer the question. And my score in that area started improving. It's just like when your car stops working. If a mechanic comes to look at your car, he needs to know what's actually wrong with this car. That's the same way. If you are preparing for the GRE, if your scores, like, you need to know what areas are you bad in, what areas are you good in. Focus on improving your strength. Focus on covering your weaknesses. There are some times where you may know that, okay, this section is hard. I'm going to forfeit this section because it's very hard. But if I'm going to forfeit this section, I need to be sure that I'm going to do very, very well in this other section that I'm good at. So, like, for example, I know that verbal was my problem and I was good in quant. But not just leave quant alone to go and focus on verbal. I still put attention into quant to be sure that, okay, see you. Even if verbal is going to fall my hands, I want to be sure that I'm going to get as much questions as I can from quantitative, so that it's going to balance my, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we understand.
Okay, so Jesus Christ, I thought I was going to watch the Nigerian match by 5. Okay, I talked about tracking your progress, and let's talk about statement of purpose. I think there are 2 more sections here that are bulky: the statement of purpose and the professors. And hopefully, I'll try as much as possible to be faster with them. Okay. I've mentioned that GRE is not just about your CGPA. I've seen people that had very high CGPA that got low GRE scores. I've seen people that got low CGPA, that had lower CGPAs, not lower CGPAs, not low CGPAs, like lower CGPAs. They are 2 different things. That got high GRE scores. GRE is about your preparation, not about your CGPA. Please take notes. GRE is about strategies. Focus on learning the strategies. It's just about strategies. The person that gets the higher GRE score is the person that knows better strategies for answering GRE questions. Try to take at least 1 full exam every month. So typically, when you prepare for the GRE, you have access to these full exams. Okay, so the problem with GRE, let me just mention the problem with GRE is not just about you knowing what you want to write. The problem is that you'll get tired during the exam. Honestly, like, the exam is like 4 hours, 3.5 hours. And there are like 5 different sections, 6 sections in the exam. And it's going to last for like, 6 sections. Each section is between 20 to 25 minutes. Honestly, by the 3rd section, you are tired. You are very tired. So by the 4th and the 5th section, it's no longer about what you know or what you don't know. You are just trying to click question. Let this exam just finish so that you go out of here, because you are typically tired. So one trick with succeeding in GRE is being able to build your stamina. Like people that run long distance races, they're able to maintain their stamina throughout the race, right? So that is the same thing with the GRE. Being able to maintain your stamina throughout the 4-hour exam is what will help you become successful. To build that stamina, I recommend taking by full exam, I mean the exam has 6 sections. Taking an exam with 6 sections, 3 verbal, 3 quantitative within the 3-hour time frame. It helps you build that stamina. It helps you know how to manage your time. So that's important. Then the last thing also I had here is seek for additional resources where you need improvement. Identify areas blah 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 blah. Try to finish the GRE book you bought. The book is big, but try to finish it. Okay, so let's go on to the next thing. Writing statement of purpose. So the first thing here is what is statement of purpose? So I would say this: your statement of purpose is typically the story you are telling to the admissions committee, the people that are going to review your application and give you admission. Your statement of purpose is simply the story you are telling them that is like, hey, I am the guy that you are supposed to admit here. It's the most important part of your application. It's the first thing the reviewer looks at. The very first thing, like they first bring out your statement of purpose and they scan through it. Is this guy saying anything that makes sense or not? If you are saying things that make sense, cool. If you are not saying things that make sense, they don't even spend time looking at the other parts of your application. You are not the kind of candidate they want. There is no single format for writing statement of purpose. You are going to get a lot of formats online. you can use any format you want. Some people like have like specific format that they recommend, but the truth is there is no single format. But because you are typically not an expert in writing, you may want to go online. There are a lot of blogs online that talk about writing statement of purpose. You may want to go to one of those blogs and see the formats that they take and try to prepare your statement of purpose according to that format. I'm not going to recommend any formats here, but then I would say no matter the format you are using to write your statement of purpose, there are some basic questions that your statement of purpose should answer. No matter how you write it, there are some basic like questions that your statement of purpose should answer. And I'll quickly go through, there are about 5 of such questions, and I'll quickly go through them. So the first is, what is your area of interest and what's your motivation towards it? Okay, now the area of interest should be specific, but the specificity depends on whether you're applying for a master's or a PhD. So if you're applying for, let's say, a master's degree, you may be typically interested in software engineering. Sorry, I keep using software engineering because that's what I'm doing. That's the first thing that comes at the top of my head. Or let's say computer science, or let's say industrial production engineering in mechanical engineering. So typically for a master's degree, your area of interest can be sufficiently broad enough. It's okay. But if you are applying for a PhD, your area of interest, remember I say that, okay, the reason why a lot of us apply for PhD in the US, I think I missed this when I was talking about master's versus PhD. In the US, if you are looking for funding opportunity in the US gives a lot of schools don't like all their PhD, in short, all over the world, PhD students are on funding, like all over the world, apart from Nigeria. You get, so whether Canada, whether UK, whether Australia, once you get your PhD, it usually comes with a tuition waiver and comes with what they call it again, and comes with monthly stipend. And the monthly stipend most times is around 2,000 US dollars. It's enough to make you live a comfortable life in the US without saving much. You know, it depends on where you are living, sir. If you are living in the middle of nowhere, like where I'm living, you can save a good amount of that money. But if you are living in a city, well, the stipends are usually higher, sir, but it depends. So, but yeah, sorry, don't go and convert $2,000 to Naira, because if you convert it, it's like 1 million Naira, you think it's a big money. Until you know that here, accommodation, you pay monthly, and some people pay up to $600 per month for accommodation. Then you know that the money is not so big. So, but that's on the other hand. So I'm just saying, so typically PhDs are usually fully funded for most schools. So because of that, it's easier to get scholarship, what you call funding, when you have a PhD than when you have masters. So with a master's degree, you are typically trying to think of 2 things. You need to get admission and you need to get the scholarship, or you need to get the funding. And most schools don't really give as much funding to master's degree as they give to PhD students. But when you're applying for PhD, your focus is just on one thing. You need to get admission, because you know, once you get admission, the probability of that admission coming with funding is very high. So that is why a lot of us at some point, we applied to both some master's program and some PhD programs. Unfortunately, the master's programs I got did not have funding, but then the PhD programs I got had funding. Like I went for the PhD. Secondly, when you apply for it, why other countries don't allow you to do a PhD without a master's degree? US allows you to do a PhD without a master's. It's called direct PhD program. And the way it works is typically your master's is about you taking courses. Your PhD is about you doing research. So you can go to UK and do your master's for 1 year or 2 years taking courses. And when you are done, you do your PhD for 3 years doing research. But in the US, you come and do your direct PhD. But then your first 2 years, you are taking courses, the same courses the master's students are taking. But then the only difference is that you also start doing your research from your first year instead of from after the master's degree. In some schools, after 2 years, after you have taken the courses that master's students are taking, the school will give you a master's degree, or you can apply for a master's degree. And then while you continue doing your research till you for the next 3 years, and then you graduate after 5 years. Kenneth, we wanted to ask you a question.
Yes, I wanted to. I wanted to ask about the PhD and master stuff. You said direct PhD, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, if I see a PhD opportunity for US, like all these ones they usually post on Twitter, elsewhere, and I apply for it without having a master's, will they just take me directly, or do I have to see where they wrote direct PhD?
Most of them actually mention like what the requirements you get. So
okay.
So most of them, so most of those you see on Twitter are professors looking for students. The US application process is so dynamic that to a large extent, in that case, it depends on the professor. So some professors are open to accepting students with only for the school can give you admission for PhD without a master's degree. But for the professor, some professors prefer you to have a master's degree. Some are open to you applying without a master's degree. So most times they'll state it there. If they state whether what's required is a bachelor's or a master's, you get. But then you should also, I'll talk about that later though, but you should also know that sometimes there are advantages and disadvantages to both. If you have a master's degree, well, you have more knowledge of the field, but then also you're also taking in a higher regard. Your statement of purpose for someone with a master's degree must be considerably better than someone with just a bachelor's degree. Okay, so that aside, I don't know, does that answer your question? Okay, so I was talking about your area of interest and motivation towards it. So for your statement of purpose, if you are applying for a master's degree, your statement of purpose, your area of interest can be sufficiently broad. You are interested in embedded systems, and now you can use embedded systems to solve the problems around you. For a PhD, it's very important that you narrow your area of interest to something that's sufficiently narrow to make sense and still falls within the expertise of the department you are looking for. So for example, if you are applying for a PhD, stating that your interest is in embedded system is too broad. It's not going to catch the interest you want your statement of purpose to catch. If you notice those, if you're on Twitter, you see all those people that make posts that they are looking for a PhD student to work on a project. You see that project is usually very specific. Maybe for embedded systems, you are interested in, okay, let me say, for example, for software engineering, which I'm sufficiently knowledgeable about to talk about. Your interest may be, what they call it again, software testing. So you're interested in the use of deep learning techniques to improve or aid software engineers in software, or you're interested in the use of deep learning techniques to develop tools that will aid software testing. This is an area that is sufficiently narrow, you get, to serve as a PhD area of interest. But then if you are going to narrow your interest for PhD application, you need to be sure that that department you're applying to has professors that are into the area of software engineering, and more specifically software testing. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
So it's very important. How do you know an area that is actually narrow? One way to do that is when you go through professors' website, you see professors saying they are interested in this, they're interested in that, they're interested in that. When you go through that, you'll be able to see, okay, a professor says he's interested in embedded systems, he's interested in machine learning. Well, okay, so using machine learning techniques to in embedded systems is narrower than just embedded systems. It's narrower than just machine learning. Does that make sense? Some people try to, you get, someone with a master's degree and sufficient knowledge of the field can be much more specific as to mention the project is interested in working. I'm interested in the use of dynamic analysis techniques, such as fuzzing, to actually improve the security of embedded systems. That's a much more narrower area of interest. But the person will be able to sufficiently state up, discuss that area because of his master's degree. But you with a bachelor's, you may not have knowledge as to indicate a very narrow area of interest. So just try to strike the balance between something that you can understand, a narrow field, so that it's not that broad, but then it's not too narrow that you cannot defend it in your state. We'll talk about that. Benedict, do you have a question?
Yeah. Please, could you throw more light on the area of how to get in touch with these professors? Like, is there a platform where you could reach out to them, or how to get in touch with these professors? Please, could you throw more light on that? Thanks.
Okay. Okay, we're again raised up his hand. Odinaka Chuku, you have a question?
Okay, yes, sir. I have two questions, sir. Hope you don't mind.
Okay.
Sometimes when we see all these ads online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, talking about applications to the US and scholarship, some of us are skeptical about it, if it's really right. So I would like to know, where is the right source to get access to this scholarship and admission? And should we also follow the ones we see on social media? And the second question is, I don't understand what is embedded system, because you are making references to it, and I was not so careful.
What is what?
Embedded system. What am I embedded?
So okay, so if I want to say that the description of embedded systems is not within the scope of this discussion, and if you don't know what it is, then probably it may not necessarily concern you, but that would sound a little bit not nice, so I'll just tell you what it is. Embedded systems is typically like anything that seems to be a computer but it's not a computer. So for example, if you have a smart television at home, that's an embedded system. Or if you have like if you are walking to Walmart, ShopRite, and the door automatically opens for you. Like the door just knows that you are coming and automatically opens for you. That's an embedded system. If you are anything that seems to be a computer, or anything that seems like it has a computer inside it, but then it's not a computer, it's an embedded system. So but that's on this side. Okay, so thank you. Then I talked about your area of interest, and your motivation towards it is typically why are you interested in that area. Please don't give too much essays about your personal life story and how, like, talk about something personal to you, but don't just talk too much about it. Then talking about your motivation towards your area of interest, I'll state this. Who's not muted? Sorry. Okay. Talking about your I'll state this. It's very good if you can tailor your motivation towards it to be a problem you are interested in. A problem, let it be around a problem. For example, I'm interested in software testing, or I'm interested in the reliability of software. But then I now, when I'm discussing writing my statement of purpose, I started by telling them how I've been working as a software engineer for 2 years, and how I've noticed that a lot of times, despite the heavy amount of testing that our quality assurance team does on our applications and products, when they go to production, they still fail. And there are a lot of bugs that are discovered when the application is on production. So because of that, you believe that there are other ways that, so because of that, you are interested in learning other ways that you can actually, what they call it again, solve this problem of unreliable software in production. This is just very vague, but I'm just trying to give an insight of how there is a personal problem you have experienced or encountered, and how your area of interest is in line with solving that problem. You get? Someone that is writing a statement of purpose that is not engineering related, maybe talking about corruption, for example, can tailor it to how corruption has been, that's a bad example for some obvious reasons, but can tailor it to how corruption has been one of the reasons behind a specific country's not so fast development. And he believes that a certain technique would, like his area of interest, would help him understand better why corruption happens, and in future help him be able to solve corruption. But I'm just trying to say, try to tailor your motivation towards a problem that someone that is reading your statement of purpose will be able to understand that problem and understand why you are interested in solving that problem. Does that make sense? Then for PhD, if you are talking about your area of interest, you should be able to go in more detail to. So for a master's SOP, you can sufficiently just say that you are interested in a specific area, and then there's this problem, and there's this area, and if you learn about this area, you'll be able to solve this problem. That makes sense, right? For your PhD, you should be able to go a step further to state that you have, to some extent, in-depth knowledge of the field. That is why it's very good. For masters, you can choose to do a master's in an area that you don't have much knowledge about. You are just interested in the area, and you can get admission. But for PhD, it helps that you already have knowledge. You want to do research. PhD is about doing research. You want to do research in a specific field that you already know about to some extent. So you need to demonstrate that to some extent you have in-depth knowledge of the field. How do you demonstrate that? You can talk a story about some projects you've worked on that are specific to that field. And not just about during my final year project, I worked on this. That's too blank. You need to specify, like in your statement of purpose, you need to specify like some in-depth knowledge of that project that you worked on. Maybe how you actually use some techniques to do something, and how those techniques were part of what motivated you into wanting to still do research into that area. Does that make sense? So maybe when you after this session, you can go online. There are a lot of statement of purpose samples online. When you read this statement of purpose, you see how people are able to demonstrate the knowledge of a specific field when writing their statement of purpose. Don't be intimidated by some SOPs. Some of them are written by people that already have very good master's degree. For want of time, I'll go through this section before looking at those that are raising their hands. Then the next is, do you have the necessary background? So yeah, there's this problem, fanciful problem, really interesting problem you are interested in. It's your area of interest in solving that problem. You know some bits of that problem. You have in-depth knowledge of that problem. The question is, do you have the necessary background to study that area? That's where you talk about what's your undergraduate institution about. I studied this in my undergraduate. What experiences do you have? Did you work on projects during your undergraduate? Do you have postgraduate experience? Have you worked with a company? Why are you the best person? Not best, but why are you a good fit for that area of interest? What background do you have? It's just like investors that want to fund a startup. Sometimes some group of founders may have a very wonderful startup idea, but when the investors look at these individuals, they are like, as much as your idea are wonderful, you are not the best persons to work on those ideas, so we can't really fund you. Not because the ideas are bad, but because you did not sufficiently say why you have the background to work on these fields. For example, if you're interested in a master's or a PhD that has to do with machine learning or AI, and you don't have any experience with AI so far, like, why should they give you the admission? You should be able to say that either you've done something with AI in the past, or at least you've taken a course on AI on Udemy or Coursera or Udacity, and you worked on a simple project. Even if you don't work on it, but see, the story you tell does not really matter, but your ability to tell a story in your statement of purpose makes all the difference. Okay, so there's another question. How is this degree going to help you? So yeah, we've known there's a problem, very interesting problem. You're interested in solving that problem. You have the necessary background to solve why are you looking for this degree? How is this degree going to help you? And to answer this question mostly depends on you talking about your postgraduate, after you graduate with this degree. How is this degree going to help you? What is your life's goal? As much as your life's goal, like your goal should be tailored towards solving that problem, but then how do you want to go about solving the problem? So yeah, maybe when you finish this degree, you are going to look for a job. The knowledge of this degree would help you in the job. Or let me say it's a PhD and you're interested in developing software tools as your research. And with a PhD, you'll be able to learn the techniques of actually carrying out high quality research. And when you are done, you want to work with a high-tech company to develop software tools that will help their developers work on their software. I hope that makes sense. Then the second to last question is, why do you think this program is a right fit for you? So yeah, everything has been making sense so far. Why are you now selecting our school, our program? Why not go to Berkeley? Like, sorry, someone laughed at me, not Berkeley, Berkeley. Okay. Why not go to Berkeley? Why do you have to come to something State University, not Dakota State University? It's a very good school, forget what. Yeah. I love the name, not Dakota. So why do you need to go to North Dakota State University instead of going to Stanford or Berkeley? So that's where you actually state what part of this program is a right fit. Why do you think that program is a right fit for you? And some of the things you may want to mention here are things like what faculty members in that program do you like? Maybe there are faculty members that are doing things that are interesting to you. Maybe there are some centers. So universities usually have what we call research centers that faculty members collaborate with. So maybe you're interested in going to MIT, and then there's a lab there that is called CSEIL, Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, something like that. And it's a very good lab. It's a very big center. And you're like, the center is going to provide you a lot of opportunities to carry out reasonable research in that field. Or the center may be, or maybe, like, you try to, to be able to answer this question, you should have done your homework by studying the program, trying to understand how that, like, trying to note, for example, when I was applying to Purdue, I saw that Purdue had their Discovery Park, which is like a fanciful name for their research park. And there are a lot of research institutions and companies that are moving there. And I think I mentioned it in my statement of purpose. I also know that Purdue Engineering has like Engineering Entrepreneurship Center, John Martin Entrepreneurship Center, where they help students and researchers like create startups from their research work. And I also mentioned that in my SOP. So you try to mention things that are relevant to, like things that the school offers that can be relevant to you. You try to also mention it in your SOP as to why you want to attend that school. And then the next thing, why are you so now we've all agreed this school is a perfect fit for you, but yeah, it's also a perfect fit for 1,000 other students, but then we can only admit 100. Why should you be among the 100 that will be admitted? Why are you a great fit for the program? And that's where you illustrate your personal capabilities. You want to talk about your leadership skills, your extracurricular activities, your team working skills, your ability to contribute. Like you want to illustrate that you are self-motivated, that you are persistent, that you are competent in what you are talking about, that you have the skills necessary to complete grad school successfully. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I continue, whoa, time is going. 2 persons raised their hands. Esther, can you quickly tell me why you raised your hand?
Okay. So I have 3 questions.
Whoa. Can you tell me
one,
the most important one?
Jesus. They're all important. But I think it can be brushed to I don't think the answer should be long.
Okay,
the first question is, you didn't tell us anything about IELTS. You gave us information on how to go about GRE. You didn't say anything about IELTS. Then secondly, this last information you said, why are you a great fit for this program? Should we tell in this whole statement of purpose, should we tell life stories like I'm a great fit for this program because I worked in so and so company, and when they gave me this task, I did this, I did that? Or should I just say I have great teamwork because I have, like, should we tell life stories? Should we be specific?
Okay. Let me say something. Whatever you are saying in your statement of purpose or any essay you are writing, don't say, demonstrate. So don't say that you have great leadership skills or that you can work well under pressure. You know that common line we used to lie on our CV, right? I can work well under pressure. Don't state anything here. That one is for your CV. You demonstrate. Demonstrate means, have you held a leadership position before? If you have, you are trying to say a story about how you use your leadership skill to actually make a difference. Again, that is why we all encourage undergraduate students to try to at least hold a leadership position in school, because it helps you solidify some of these stories you tell. You want to say about how persistent you are. Yeah, talk about a challenge that you experienced that otherwise other people would have failed, but then you still kept on going or something like that. Say a story that demonstrates this. For IELTS, there was no time about it, but I say most of the things I discussed about GRE, you can actually apply them to any other exam, even to your university exams. Actually, they are common knowledge. Okay, sorry, they are generic. Okay, Chinedu, Alpha, what's the?
Sorry, one more question.
Wait, calm down, Esther, please. You don't worry. You can send it
Okay.
as a chat, please. Sorry. Yeah, Chinedu.
Alright.
Okay. Thank you, Pascal. My question is concerning one, this SOP, and secondly on professor, like emailing professors abroad.
Yeah.
Maybe for position of a research assistant.
Yeah, please. What is the question?
So the question there is that, like, you know, what we studied electrical, electronic, and we auction in different options, like high in power system. So, but you found out that the schools there, most of them in US, they have electrical and computer engineering as a course.
Yeah.
Most times when I go through their professors trying to find their area of interest, they are mostly on, you know, electronic and communication aspect. Like personally, I have interest in power, and you know, you hardly find a school that is
I'll
just.
talk about that in the next slides. Okay, for those raising their hands, I'll still come back to you. Let's just move on. Okay, so now let's talk about the next, which is identifying and contacting professors. Okay. So like I said, why is this important? Okay, you already need to contact professors. Like I said, one of the ways of getting funding in the US is through a professor, because professors give research assistantships. So most of those advertisements that you see on what they call it again, on Twitter, our professors are looking for. So this professor gets a grant, hundreds of thousands of US dollars from either the US government or from a company like Google or Apple or Rolls-Royce. And then they look for students to actually come and work with them on that project. So reaching out to a professor means that if the professor has such a funding, he's also looking for students. You may be reaching out to him at the point where he's looking for students. Some professors, so sometimes there are some schools that give admit. Okay, first of all, it's not every school that requires you to contact professors. Some schools feel that professors giving admissions bias their process. So the schools prefer to admit students, and then in your first year, especially this is very common with chemistry and biology kinds of field, the sciences. So the school admits you. In your first year, you do what is called rotation. So typically, you work in different labs. You rotate through about 2 or 3 different labs. And then after rotating through 2 or 3 labs, you and a professor will get a chance to work with each other within 1 semester. And you can then agree to, like, the professor can then agree to take you on as a student. Some schools also just give students teaching assistantships in their first year. So typically what it means is when you come in your first year, for example, especially if you're applying to something like chemistry, almost every, like in Purdue, for example, thousands of year 1 students, like freshmen, do chemistry. So there is need for a high number of chemistry teaching assistants. So chemistry admits students, like you don't need to contact a professor to get admitted in chemistry, because the department can give you a teaching assistant within your first year while you keep on contacting your professor when you are in the school. But the truth is, for most persons I know that got admitted in engineering, most 90% of persons I know that got admitted in engineering, it was because they were able to contact a professor before getting admitted. This is because there's really there's really no much like need for teaching assistantship, because engineering don't really do courses that are broad, like for the whole university, like chemistry or physics or biology, you get. But then there are still people that got admitted without contacting a professor. But if you're able to get a professor, so imagine, look at it from this way. The department may have 2,000 students applying, and then they need to select only 50. A professor can have only 10 students. Well, not 10, there's already a lot, but maybe only 10 that makes sense, and you're among the 10, and he needs to select 2 or 3. So you see, the odds are way higher by getting a professor compared with by applying directly to the school. Sorry, you will still apply to the school, but if you get a professor, like all the professor needs to do is to write a positive, like, hey, see, I have money to fund this student, please give him admission. And for most schools, the school will give you the admission. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So here I want us to talk about how can you identify these professors. And I have 3 areas I have listed here about identifying these professors. So someone asked that question. It's a very important question. It's school like Purdue, for example, Purdue EC, electrical and computer engineering. Yeah, in US, it's very common to see electrical and computer engineering, which is they are merging both the electrical engineering, electronics, communications, computer. You get, it's very easy to see. It depends on like chemistry, for example. They may have a department of chemistry, but then it has analytical chemistry, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, physical chemistry, blah 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 blah. They may have like, it's very easy to see that in the US. One big department. So the question is, how can you identify a professor that is interested in you? Sorry, that interested in the area you are interested in. So like he said that he's interested in power systems, and then you want to go through like you want to find professors in power systems. The first way that most people do is they go to the department's website and they start looking through. So they start opening. So in US, most universities, they have like a department's website where they list all their professors. You get, so they start looking through each professors one by one. The problem with that is that it's usually time wasting, because you have sometimes some universities arrange these professors by areas, but then it's still broad enough. So you may see like 20 professors that in the computer engineering area, but then I'm interested in embedded systems. So I have to go through the websites of each of these 20 professors to know which of them is actually interested in embedded systems. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but then it's time wasting, because if you are doing this for 10 schools, you'll see yourself shopping through websites of professors a lot. So I would, as much as you do that, but I would recommend the other two options I'm going to talk about here from publishing venues. So if you're interested in a field, you may want to know so by publishing venues, it means like when these professors work on projects, they write papers. Papers are like reports, and then they publish them in either conferences or journals. So if you open a conference, you'll be able to see the let me say for last year, 2021, for example, you'll be able to see the conference website for last year and the list of accepted papers, which is like the reports that the professor submitted. Now, these papers are usually organized according to areas. So, and even sometimes the conferences are even usually specific. So you may see a conference on cybersecurity, or you may see a conference on power systems engineering, or you may see a conference or a journal on like organic chemistry. So if you can identify the publishing venues, that is the conferences or journals that professors in that field publish to, you can, when you Google, you will see them top conferences for power systems engineering. You will see the top conferences. When you open the conference website for last year, not this year, last year's one, you look for the accepted papers. Or normally some of them arrange the accepted papers by, so you'll see like, for example, in maybe I'll show us later, but maybe say, for example, in security, computer security, you may see, okay, there's this section on cyber security. There's this section on hardware security. There's this section on network security. There's this section on embedded system security. There's this section on software security. So if you're interested in, let me say, software security, you can now go to the subsection for that. It shows you papers that were submitted in that for that section. Every single person that submitted a paper there is working in that area. So it helps you become more specific as to, and you can see the universities those people are from. You can see maybe if I don't know how to share two screens here. If I can share two screens, but let me check. But we don't have time. I may come back to it though if there is time. But you can just Google this. You can check the conference website. It shows you like you'll be able to see people that are actually in those areas. One thing that you should notice, normally when you see a paper and it's published by, let me I think it's important I show what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so for example, I don't know who uses Zoom. Can I share two screens at the same time?
I don't think so.
Okay. Can you see my Chrome?
I don't think so, sir. I don't think so.
Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
you
Yeah,
can see your
we can
you
see
can see your
it.
Chrome. Just
Okay.
Chrome now. It will definitely show.
Okay, so my search history. So let me say I'm interested in professors that are in computer security, for example. So the first thing I'll do is stop conferences for it gives you a lot of fields. Computer security. There are 4 top conferences. Okay, sorry. Please add research conferences. Yeah. Okay. So if you open this link, for example, you can see by ranking, Usenix is usually the number 1, IEEE Symposium, IEEE S&P is number 2, NDSS and CCS is supposed to be number. Wow. Okay, this is also a very popular conference on computer and communications security. Okay, so this already tells you these are the top security conferences in like today for security and cryptography. And then let me say I open the first one, which is Usenix security. How do I? Okay. 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 So I've known the name of one conference now, right? Now let me look for their website. So I'll do a Usenix security 2021 proceedings. So this gives me the website for Usenix security. So that was the 30th Usenix security symposium, blah, 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 blah. I look for their accepted papers. So here I can see here some accepted papers, full accepted papers. So you can go through the website, but if I go to accepted papers, okay. Okay, so this one does not arrange it according to fields, so it may be a bit difficult to go through, but there are sometimes it arranges it according to. Okay, let me look for the proceedings. Is the proceedings that is usually arranged according to fields. Okay, for some reason, this particular conference does not really have stated proceedings. Like proceedings is usually arranged according to field, but then I'll still use the what they call it again. So the reason why it's difficult going through a list like this is a lot of things here may not really be what they call it again. It may not really be you may not really understand much here. But what I'm just trying to say in essence is all these papers here has to do with computer security, right? Are we together?
Yes, we are together. Yeah.
So all these papers here have to do with computer security. There are different kinds of computer security. So like this one has to do with embedded systems. So may have to do with software security or blah, blah, blah. This one has to do with fuzzing. But just that all of them has to do with computer security. You are interested in US. For each of these names here, it tells you the school. So this one, we know this is University of California, Irvine, and this is Microsoft Research, and this is University of California, Irvine. So you can look for the schools that are US schools if you are interested in US. Clemson University is a US school. Okay, so let's look at this one from University of California. This first name here is most likely is most likely a PhD student who is advised by the last name here, right? So we are interested in this last name here. If I Google this guy, do you want to bet that he's going to be a professor working on security? Anybody wants to bet?
No betting, let's try.
Rate my professor. And then he's in University of California. And you can see his info page. So, and you can see he's a professor of computer science at University of California, Irvine. And his research interest is in privacy, computer and network security, applied cryptography. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
So typically, instead of going through, let me say, if I go to that University of California, is it in computer science? Yeah, computer science. Faculty members. So if I open the computer science at the University of California, and then, okay, so typically, if you open this University of California's computer science department's website, if you open this research or go to research areas, it tells you the areas of research. So here you can see artificial intelligence. These are, for this computer science department, these are their areas of research. There are some here that are common everywhere. So most schools will have an area on artificial intelligence or computer system architecture. But it's not every school that is going to have computational systems biology. So if you're interested in computer science for biology, for example, you should be looking for a department that has a research area on computational system, like something related to computer science for biology. Does that make sense? So let's say, remember, our interest, our interest is in security, right? Computer security. But then we don't really see computer security here. It could be embedded in one of these. But none of this even links to their professor's page. So let's look at academics. Let's look at research labs. So, okay. So when you go to research labs, you see a lot of professors and their labs. You have to start opening these labs one by one to see which of them aligns with your interests. My problem with this approach is good in helping you identify schools you are interested in, because you are looking for schools that have a research area that aligns with your interests. But in identifying professors, it's easier to look at the proceedings page. If you look for, like, okay, this is Penn State University, for example. Okay, this person is a professor at Georgia Tech. So if we look at this person, Georgia Tech, GATEC. So you can see here is in their School of Cybersecurity and Privacy and their School of they have a School of Cybersecurity. That makes sense. He's a fine man. And yeah, so his interest includes systems and network security, cryptography, and machine learning. So you can do this for any conference at all, like any conference. If you mention any conference on anything, you get, there are a lot of conferences. So do you guys understand? That's one way you can use to look for professors that are that have the same interest as you. And then the last thing I'll mention is ranking sites. So this Google Scholar and CS rankings, usually CS rankings is just for computer science, but Google Scholar is broader. You can find rankings of professors in different fields. This is important for people that may want to work with like the top professors in a field. Let me say you are that kind of 5.0 CGPA student and you want to work with the top professor in embedded systems or computer security. You can go to CS rankings and you see a ranking of the top professors in computer science, and you can reach out to them. So the next thing is, how should you contact these professors? Okay, so I'll say this. By September, October, a lot of professors get emails from students. How are you going to stand out depends on you. There are some things I have in mind which I would mention, but really it just depends on you. One of those things is, if you go to the conference website, like I had mentioned initially, you can see a paper by that professor. You can try to just go through the abstract of the paper if you can understand what it's talking about, and send the professor a mail that yeah, I went through your paper on symbolic root cause analysis of exploits in See, forget all these things. So all these things just trying to say is that production systems are typically softwares that you can use, softwares in production. And this person developed a tool called ARCOS that can tell you the root cause analysis of bugs in softwares that people are using. So forget the whole English. So, but typically what I'm trying to say in essence is you can typically write a mail to a professor then. Hi, Professor this. My name is so and so. I came across your paper, Symbolic Root Cause Analysis of Exploits in Production Systems. It was a nicely written paper and I learned about this and this and this. But then I have this question. Please, can you answer? Like, so typically you can craft a question from this. A professor is more likely to give a response to that question rather than telling him, hi, Professor this. I went through your website and I saw that you are interested in computer security. Even me and my father and my entire family is also interested in computer security. Please, are you accepting students this year? I want to be one of your students, which is the mail that a lot of students actually send to professors. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So it's good if, see, there's a probability that the professor is not going to respond to your mail, but he's going to read it. So it's okay if professors are not responding to your mail. You just need to keep shooting. I advise people that if you start early, you can start mailing professors as early as June. By August, September, they start getting a lot of mails from prospective students. So you are more likely to get a response if you send your mail early. When he responds, I send that what they call it again, and he said, and if the professor responds to your initial question, then that's cool. 2 weeks later, you can then send him another mail. You are interested in what they call it again, in this research, in furthering that particular work, and you don't know if I want to know if he has funding or opportunities or open opportunities in his lab. You have already demonstrated to the professor through your first email that you are interested in that area, because if not, you wouldn't have read the paper or at least the abstract. You get? So I think that's a way that I've seen people that went through that approach and it worked for them. It's better than just sending blanket emails to professors. And then, but no professor is responding to my mail. Well, just keep shooting. Really, all you need is for just one professor to tell you yes. Whoa, for some reasons, my laptop is low. One of the problems of being in the US is that you would have light, but your laptop will still get low. Okay, so there are other application requirements which I wouldn't talk much about. There is a transcript. You all know what transcript is, right? It's given to you by your undergraduate institution. There are letters of recommendation that you need to get your professors to write for you. There is the curriculum vitae, which you need to prepare. And then there is application fees. I would say 2 things about letters of recommendations and application fees. Then some scholarships would require you to write some other essays. For letters of recommendation, sometimes you may need to apply to 5 or more schools. I need professors to write these letters for you. Some people, when they apply to the first school, they go and tell the professor, hi, professor, please, can you write a letter of recommendation for me here? The professor manages to write it. Then they apply to the second school, they go and tell him again. By the third school, the professor gets tired. I think one way that works is if beforehand, before September, you already know the schools, you've already had a short list of the 5 schools or 10 schools or 100 schools or 3 schools you want to apply for before September. You can send the list to a professor. You can discuss with the professor, you're interested in applying for these schools. The professor already sees that you're applying for 7 schools and you would want letters of recommendations for each of them. The professor already shapes his mind that, okay, he's expecting to write letters of recommendations for 7 schools. It's easier to keep them on their toes that way, rather than just always coming to disturb them every day that you have one new application that needs a letter of recommendation. Then for application fees, Most universities in the US require up to $60, $70, $100 application fees. But if you start planning early, many of these schools do application fee waivers. Are we together?
Yes.
Yes.
So if I'm to show you something, for example, what's your favorite school?
MIT.
University, Canada.
Okay. So if you do a simple search for application fee waiver, that is, you won't pay waiver, you would most likely see an information if the school gives waiver and what conditions. So fee waiver requests can be submitted by the applicant via the applications or by sending an email to these e-credentials, including your full name, blah, and reason you are requesting for a fee waiver. So many universities tell you that you can send them an email and request for a fee waiver and they will grant it. Sometimes you can do this googling and you see that, okay, this school actually does what is called free application week, meaning that during 1 week in October or November, if you submit your application during that week, you won't pay application fees. Some schools will have a program that they organize, maybe a graduate information session, which if you attend, they give you a waiver code that you won't need to pay application fee waiver. So the earlier you start making this research about the schools you are interested in, the easier, if you have a sheet that you keep this information. So assuming a school did an application fee waiver week last year, there's a great possibility that they'll do the same thing this year. If a school organized an information session last year, there's a great probability they'll do the same thing this year. So when you collect this information, you can keep track of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so I think I've covered a lot about graduates, the application processes and the requirements. So yeah, I said I was going to talk about my graduate school experience so far, but I would leave this. I would respond to questions, and then if there is time, and for people but I was supposed to have a call by 12, which is already 12, but let's say between the next 10 or 15 minutes, I would respond to questions, and after that, if there is still time, I'll still come back here. If not, we'll end the call. But thank you all for your patience so far. So
Thank you very much.
I have other thoughts here. The first I want to mention, graduate school is not for everyone. It is difficult and it is challenging. Yeah, because if I was to talk about my experiences, you'd see that in graduate school, especially if you are doing a direct PhD, you are going to be wearing many hats. You'll probably be working as a teaching assistant. You'll still be doing research and you have your coursework. Most times your coursework, let's say your undergraduate level, you stopped here and then you are starting your master's or PhD and it's going to start here. And you are the one that is going to cover up this gap yourself. So typically, to even understand what your professor is teaching in the class, you need to take yourself from here where you are to here to be able to understand. And it takes time, it's difficult, it's challenging. And the truth is that not everybody can do that. So this may sound like a blank truth, but it may sound not so sensitive, but I was discussing with a couple of friends last week, and someone mentioned like she now tells her friends, see, if there's any other part you think you can use to japa, use it. Graduate school, if you want to do graduate school, it should not be because you want to japa, because you want to leave Nigeria or whichever country you are from. That shouldn't be the higher motivation why you are going for graduate school. Well, most persons in graduate school, that's their motivation, but I'm saying the reason why you should do graduate school is because you really want to, if it's masters, you really want to do your masters, or if it's PhD, you think you have interest in PhD, or you think you can be tenacious enough, because it's going to be difficult and it's going to be challenging. You think you can be tenacious enough to want it, but it is greatly rewarding. So if you can do, for example, I think one way people talk about rewarding is how much you would earn at the end. assuming you get a master's degree for a funding, for example, in the US, and you finish it in 2 years, by the end of the 2 years, if you get a job in the US, you are going to at least start with something that is close to $100,000 or more. Assuming it's a PhD you do, I've seen people that finished a 5-year PhD in the US, and by the end of the 5 year, their starting salary was close to $200,000 per annum, or some one I even heard that was big tech, $250,000 for a starting salary. You get, and depending on the company, some of them come with stock options and some other benefits. So the thing is, by the time you are done with graduate school, or even the graduate school experience, because the graduate school experience is built in such a way that it's difficult and challenging, but it helps build you such that at the end of the day, whichever career path you are going to, whether you want to remain in academia or go to the industry, like the probabilities of you being successful is way higher than you failing. Okay, so it's now left for you. If you really want to go to graduate school, it's good you know that it's going to be difficult and it's going to be challenging. But I believe that if we are inclusive, because I'm still in the process, stay the course, it's also going to be greatly rewarding. Thank you. So I would answer any questions that you may have now. Let me see who is raising their hands. Okay, Joy Azeta, I think you've raised your hands for quite some time.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Concerning masters and PhD, which do you think is advisable? I said, which do you think is advisable applying for? Because you talked about the PhD being for 3 years. First, the 2 years for master course, but the PhD can start from the first year. So which one do you think is advisable first? Should we go straight for the masters or the PhD?
Okay, so I think I'll mute you because you have some listening. Okay, so I think that depends on what you want as a person. It also depends on the fields. So there are some fields that, yeah, a PhD really helps your even industry-based career a whole lot, more than some other fields. You get, so if you are in, for example, the basic sciences, chemistry, and please, Joy, I think there's some echo from your end. If you are not talking, please can you mute? Okay.
Joy, please mute your mic.
Okay. So yeah, as I was mentioning, so some fields like chemistry, biology, I think most industry opportunities, if you want to work with the top industries in those fields, a PhD is really relevant for you. Like, because the top industry, like if you want to work in, let me say, something like Pfizer or Emzo that produces drugs, it's not just about it's not just like they really need people with PhD to actually produce this, to actually research and produce these drugs for them. You get. So even some tech companies, like now, most tech companies have like research labs. You get. So they employ PhD graduates. So it depends on your career goals. But then I know that most of us in Nigeria, then like we don't really have a clear direction of what we want. So I'll put it this way: a PhD is going to be grueling. It's a 5-year or 4-year grueling period. You get. If you think you can, if you think you are tenacious enough to want to embark on it, sure, there are more opportunities. Like it's easier to get funding with PhD. So a lot of persons apply for PhD. You get. On the other hand, if your interest is more like industry based, like you just want to do a master's degree and go and work with the industry, your focus can be more into the Erasmus Mundus programs. I don't think I talked about it though. If you're interested in schooling in Europe, you can focus on getting Erasmus Mundus scholarship. It's a 2-year scholarship where you tour Europe. You go to 3 countries in Europe, and yeah, you school in 3 countries in Europe. You get, and after 2 years, you are done with it, and there are a lot of opportunities from there. You get, or you can try to be more intentional about some of the UK-based scholarships. And yeah, I know a lot of persons that get them, even though they are competitive. You get, so there's really no single answer about whether you should go for a PhD or a master's degree, really. Yeah. Leslie Chukwueke.
Yeah, thanks, Pastor.
Yeah.
Yeah. With regards to the letter of reference coming from professors, is there a specification as to what kind of professor? Does it have to be someone you've had a relationship with prior or something? I know it's someone that has to do with someone whose field is in line with the one you're pursuing for graduate school application. I just don't know if there is any criteria other than that.
Okay, so I think there's really no criteria, but most schools want whoever. Some schools specify, well, if you're applying for a PhD, all your referees should be like professors in the school, or at least some schools specify maybe a certain number, maybe like 2 or 3 of them should be professors in the school. You get, but some schools don't have such requirements. I think what's more important is it should be someone that at least is Googleable. So typically, if you are getting even if the person is not a professor, but it's good if, okay, I'll put it this way. I think for my application, specifically my application to Purdue, I used 2 professors, and the third person that wrote my referee was the CEO for one of the startups, for one of the companies I work with. One of the companies I worked with after graduation, the CEO wrote my third letter of recommendation. You get, and the reason why I wanted it that way is I wanted 3 people who are going to talk about 3 different aspects of me. So by 3 different, one of your questions was whether it should be someone that knows you. The truth is there is really no specific requirements, but someone that knows you is more likely to write a lot of more detailed information about you than someone that don't know you. You get, so I know in Nigeria it's difficult to get a professor to actually know you, but sometimes what you can really tell the professor, like the professor may not really know you per se, but if you can provide him a lot of information about you and things you would have done when you were in school, it could aid him, especially assuming he took a course and you took the course, like let me say it's a professor that you took his course and you maybe got an A in his course, and you also tell him that, okay, that when I took this course I got an A. It could help provide him a lot of things to write about you. So yeah, what I was saying before that was it's good to have professors write different things about you. So typically, if every professor is writing the same thing, well, one recommendation, well, it's good because it's emphasizing that thing. But if, let me say, the first professor talks a lot about, let me say, your academic ability, and then the second professor, when I say professor, it must not necessarily be a professor. It can be a lecturer. In the US system, every lecturer is called a professor. So when I say professor, it's like US, it's a lecturer in Nigeria. So so the first professor could write about your academic ability. Maybe the second may be a professor that you work with because you are also, let me say, a departmental executive. And then while he also talks about your academic ability, he also mentions your leadership ability. Maybe the third person may be someone that knows about your technical skills also. Maybe one way or the other, you work with him some way, or let me say you're a part of IEEE or a professional organization and you organized a seminar and the professor was part of it, that kind of thing. And that professor can also mention that aspect of you. It helps create a balanced image of you to people reviewing your application. It's perfectly okay if you don't have the access to professors that can write different things about you. But I'm just saying, if you have such access, or if you, during your undergraduate studies, you try to be broad enough to work with different types of professors, then it helps provide you a richer letter of recommendation. I don't know, let's see, Chukwuike Chibuno, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Odinaka Chukwu Henry. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
The statement of purpose and other information that they provide. The university specify, or would you just accept that both the professor and the letter of recommendation?
Would they specify what?
They specify those information.
Yeah. If you search for a school, it tells you all the information about, or at least most of the information. Most of these will be on the program website.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Paulina.
Okay, thank you. Please, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. My question is, are all the PhDs for 4 to 5 years? And if you already have a master's from Nigeria, does it count for anything? Because I heard somebody saying that over there, our master's is not appreciable, sort of. So do I still need to go through that 2 years compulsory master's before the 3 years PhD? That's if I want to apply for a PhD.
Okay, so a master's is like acceptable everywhere. Even a Nigerian master's is acceptable everywhere. It's just a Nigerian master's may not provide you the same level of experience, especially research experience, as a foreign master's, but it's still totally acceptable. You get, and I may not have mentioned this, but what's more important in your transcripts, whether for undergraduate or masters, is not really the what they call it again. It's not really your CGPA. It's more about the courses in your transcript and your grades in those courses. So if your master's degree says that you've done some advanced courses and you got good grades there, yeah, it counts. Nobody looks down on a Nigerian degree. Sometimes though, I have a friend that he applied for a department for a company. If he studied electrical engineering like EE with a first class, he applied for computer science, a PhD in computer science. But despite the fact that he had first class, there were some undergraduate courses which like they expected their PhD students to take, which he had not taken. For example, operating systems and some other courses like that. And for the school, if you don't have such courses in your transcript, when they gave him admission, it did not stop them from they gave him admission. But then when he came to the school, he has to also take those courses. Like he has to take some undergraduate courses to fulfill those requirements. So what's more important is the courses on your transcripts and your grades in them. You get, yeah. And okay, let me also say this. If your CGPA is a 4.5, you can pursue a direct PhD. It's like you stand a good chance of getting it. If your CGPA is a 4.0 and above, you need a stronger like a 4.0 to 4.5. You can also pursue a direct PhD, you get. But you need a stronger statement of purpose. Like your statement of purpose should be strong enough as to also make you very competitive. If your CGPA is a 3.5 to 4.0, or let me say 3.5 and above, you need a very strong statement of purpose, and you need to write a GRE. You need to write and score high in GRE, because GRE is what is going to help supplement that your 3.7. I'm not saying it's not possible to get these opportunities. It is, but it's more difficult. So you need to make yourself much more competitive. If you got less than a 3.5, the probability of you getting access to some opportunities is very limited. Very, very limited. Very, very, very limited. I was watching a YouTube video today, and it said something about a girl that got master's scholarship in the US, but then she finished with a 3rd class. That's motivational, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, she finished with a 3rd. Why we say it's not really motivational? Someone finished with a 3rd class and still got US scholarship in the US, and I'm here saying you need a 1st class.
Okay, I thought you said that she finished like after the scholarship that she got, that she finished with a 3rd class.
No. She finished with a 3rd class from a Nigerian school.
Okay.
But then that's not the full story. The full story is that she finished with a 3rd class, and then she went and did a PGD, postgraduate diploma, and I think she got a 1st class in the PGD, or a distinction in the PGD. So typically, the third class did not really now become a problem for her. The PGD was what. So if you're what they call it again, if you're on the, I know people that I've read stories, especially on Twitter, that their undergraduate program wasn't really that good. But then they had to go and do a master's in the Nigerian school, pay the school fees, do a 1 year or 2 year master's. A lot of federal institutions, you can graduate masters in 2 years or in 3 semesters. You know, in Nigeria, it's not about number of years, it's about number of semesters. So in 3 semesters or in 4 semesters, you finish your master's degree. And then if you can get a distinction in your master, it makes you more compete, like you stand a better chance than someone that even has a first class from his undergraduate. So typically, if your undergraduate isn't so good, you may want to consider doing a master's degree to beef up your chances. Okay, before I continue answering the question, there's something I want to mention about Europe. A lot of schools in Europe don't pay school fees. Finland, Hungary, Germany, they don't pay school fees. So what it means is that you can get admission for masters in Germany and you don't need to pay school fees. But the cost of living there is high. So you need to, and then many of these countries have a form of work policy where you can be schooling and you can be working. So because of that, you are not paying school fees. You can be working and then you are earning money to sustain yourself. So it's also one route that a lot of persons are also considering today. So especially if your undergraduate result was not so good, like it's not so good, you may want to consider looking into admissions to country like Finland. They have a very good educational system, very, very good. Philippines, Germany, you get. Germany, they don't speak English, but most of their schools, they have schools that are purely English-based. Like English is the lingua franca for academics. So their schools are purely English-based. So you learn in English and they don't pay school fees. So typically, most of what is needed is if you have, like, let's say 3 million in your account, 3 to 5 million. If you can find 3 to 5 million from anywhere, like any legitimate source, you can apply to these schools and get admission. The reason for the money is for 2 purposes. The first is that Germany is not going to give you a visa unless you can show money that you can actually sustain yourself. So there's a certain amount of money that Germany will require you to show. It must not be your money. It could be from an uncle's account or something. You get, or in Germany, if you have a family member in Germany that can give you a letter or something stating that he's going to take care of you. But then the second reason why you need to have at least access to some money is so that when you get to this country, at least you need money to get yourself to the country and at least spend for your first 2 or 3 months there. Within your first 2 or 3 months, you can look for a job in the country. And once you get a job, jobs pay hourly. The money you make per month from the job, even if you are working part-time, will be enough to actually take care of you, pay your accommodation while you are in the country. So I think it's not as easy as getting in US schools where it comes directly with money. But I think it's one opportunity a lot of persons consider today. If you can get a job in Nigeria that pays you and you're able to save money for like 2 years, with that 2 years, you may be able to save money that you can now use to pursue admissions to Germany or any other country. You don't need a scholarship. There's no tuition there. Yeah. Okay, so it seems there are a lot of persons raising up their hands. Charles, you have a question. Hello, Charles. Chibike, you have a question.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
My question is, regardless of the GP, because you were saying something about GP, if it's 3.0 below.
Yeah. Hello? Hello?
Someone can have admission, no clarification on that.
Sorry, I don't hear you. Can you repeat yourself?
I said that regarding the low GP, you were saying something about low GP in your undergraduate school. Can
you please type your question? Or you know what? Okay, please, if you want to ask a question, can you type it? Let me just read out questions from the chat and answer.
And you're saying that the person can see others. I want you to explain more.
You are breaking, please. Can you type your question? Okay, so I'll just read out question. I'll just read out. Wow, Nigeria is winning Sudan 2-0. That's nice. Thank you all well for. He sent it as a direct message to me. Okay, I want to watch the Nigerian match, but well, maybe I'll watch the next one. Okay. Suppose one doesn't get a fully funded scholarship for either master's or PhD. How flexible is the work curriculum like? Is it possible to combine work and school? Yeah, so in the US, it's possible to combine work and school, except if you are schooling in the US visa system is so restrictive. As an international student, you can only work in the school and you can only work for a maximum of 20 hours. For a maximum of 20 hours in the school. And yeah, there are a lot of work opportunities in the school, but they are mostly restricted to things like working in restaurants or working in like those kind of work you get. So that is it for working. But then for some countries don't have that restriction. So typically you can be doing a master's and you are working with a company and you can combine both of them. It may be a little bit stressful, but people do it. With a good undergraduate and MSc, I may not necessarily need a GRE to get PhD admission, right? With a good MSc and undergraduate, sure, you don't need a GRE. Even without a good undergraduate and MSc, you may not necessarily need a GRE. It's just a GRE strengthens your application. You get, if you have very good undergraduate and MSc, your application may be strong already without it. So, but then there is really no single there's no single thing that just fits everyone. To what extent do personal projects in a field you're interested in compensate for undergraduate academic performance? Personal project has nothing to do with undergraduate academic performance. So personal project is not going to make them look at your undergraduate performance in a different way. On the other hand, it could also contribute to the strength of your application, especially if you are interested in working with a professor. So, for example, the professor I'm working with, when I was sending an email on his website, because he's a software engineering researcher. So on his website, he said something like, for you to like work with him, you need to have some amount of software engineering. Like you should be able to build something, like have some sort of software engineering knowledge. And when you are sending him an email, he also asks that you send him a link to one of your GitHub repositories with something you have worked on. So in that regard now, writing an email to such a professor and being able to demonstrate that you have, because he's a software engineering researcher, so most of our work has to do with software engineering. Being able to demonstrate that you already have some good software engineering experience, like it counts a lot for your application. Also, for some schools when you are applying to them, like especially in computer science and EC, they look for students that have some strong programming background, because so most of the courses you do in computer science and EC are project based. You work on projects during the course of the course, and they are not going to teach you how to program. So they are looking for students that already have strong programming knowledge, at least in one language. You get, so demonstrating that also in your CV and in your SOP counts towards that. You get, so it's not going to and there's something about applications. There are a lot of things that are important. Sometimes being strong in one area can compensate for some shortfalls in another area, but it does not just cover up totally for it. You get, so what do you have to say about scams and legit sites for application of scholarship? I don't know about scam and legit site too. Every scholarship body has a website. That website gives you all the information you want to know. So if you are following some other sites, I don't know about those ones. But so far the site is giving you information about something and it's not asking you to pay money. Well, it's the information. When they ask you to pay money, then you can start asking questions about their legitimacy. Please, I want to state this, at least for those that are still here. The most important resource at this point is Twitter. There are a lot of Twitter handles that you can follow at this point, and they provide a lot of information about graduate school process. I may share some handles on the WhatsApp group later today. Can you talk something about Canada? I don't know much about Canada except, so Canada, there are a couple of scholarship opportunities in Canada. For example, MasterCards at University of British Columbia, UBC, and MasterCard at McGill. You get, but I don't know much about, and some schools in Canada also give scholarships. But the good schools in Canada are very competitive to get admitted to. Then plus funding, which is also very competitive. And Canada, like, the major source of funding in US schools is teaching assistantships and research assistantships. In many other countries like Canada, these things are restricted to PhD students. And without a master's degree, you can't get a PhD admission in those schools. That's why it limits greatly the opportunities that you can access from those countries. But then many schools in Canada also offer some form of scholarships, full and partial, for master's students. So you have to Google the school website to know what opportunities are available in that school. Is there a significant advantage of Nigerian universities over foreign universities? I don't know if there is. Is there? It's not really about where I did your undergraduate, though. How can one access scholarship exams for MSc and PhD? What do you mean by, I don't know, Charles, can you explain what you mean by scholarship exams, please? Like, throw more light on the question. If someone has a low CGPA of 3.0 to 3.5, can one still go to schools in Germany and Finland? So I think schools in Germany and Finland, yeah, you'll be able to get a master's admission in those schools. But then, you know, there are some schools that are purely very competitive. There are some, so you need to be able to Google the school, Google their admission acceptance rates, and maybe know if the school has like a low CGPA, like a minimum CGPA that you need to get before you apply to the school. But if there is none, sure, you can get admission you can get a master's admission in those schools. Yeah. Would you advise one to go for an M-Engine or MSc if they don't want to toe the academic path? I think it's only in Nigeria I've seen M-Engine. In US, I've not seen anything like M-Engine. But then there are two types of masters, or there are three types of masters. There is the course-based masters, there is the project-based masters, and there is the research-based masters. So if you are not interested in continuing to academia or continuing to a PhD, you may not need a research. So a research-based masters means you take courses and you also do some form of research. A thought-based master's means you just take courses. It's just like a Nigerian, okay, Nigeria, you do your master's thesis. For a course-based master's degree, you just do courses. It's just that most of those courses also have research component or project component, but you just do, you won't do a research project. Then there is a project-based master's where you take courses. Okay, I'll be more specific. In Purdue, for example, which is the school I'm in, if you are doing a course-based masters, you do 10 courses. So if you finish 10 courses, you graduate with your master's degree. If you are doing a research-based masters, a thesis-based master, you do only 6 courses. So you do only 6 courses, and then after the 6 courses, you do a research thesis. You work with a professor on a research project, and then you write a thesis based on that. If you are doing a project-based masters, I think you do 8 courses, and then a project, a semester, a 1-year-long project. So typically the 8 courses and the project, and then you graduate. So different schools have, like, you can check the school website for more information. Wow, this one is long. I heard that before you can settle in the US, you have to live there for like 5 years, or you'll be forced to return back to Nigeria after grad school. So is it possible to settle permanently after your 2 years master's degree? Okay, so this is a little bit dicey. In US, after your master's degree, you have what we call OPT. I forgot what OPT means, but you have what we call OPT. And OPT, you can do OPT. So OPT allows you to work with a company, like to get job in a company. You get, and so within 2 years after you graduate from your master's, within 2 years you need to get a job in the US. If you can get a job within 1 year, you need to get a job in the US. If you can get a job in the US within 1 year, then you can convert your visa from a student visa to a work-based visa. For what, either H1B or something like that. And so it's more like you have 1 year to get a job. You have an extra 1 or 2 years to convert your visa from a student visa to a work-based visa. If you can't get a job within 1 year, you may need to go back to Nigeria because you can't renew your student visa again. But if you do a master's in US, it's very easy to get a job. Like, I've not seen someone that did master's in the US and was sent back home to Nigeria because he did not get a job. You get that kind of thing. Permanent residency is a totally different thing. Once you get a job and you get a work visa, you can, like, you keep on renewing your visa. You can keep on renewing it for as long as possible. You will remain in the US valid, legitimately. Permanent residency is a totally different thing. Permanent residency means that you have like a permanent visa to remain in the US. Now, there's this, I don't know, you may have seen this somewhere, National Interest Waiver, NIW. If you do a PhD in the US, after your PhD, you can apply for that NIW. And if you get it, you get your permanent residency immediately after your PhD, or even during your PhD. On the other hand, also, you can work in the US for a certain number of years, contribute to the US through your work, and then you can apply for permanent residency. But that takes time, like 5 years, I think, or more. On the other hand, also, you can invest in the US a certain number of dollars, and, well, you also get your permanent residency. Like, money does everything now. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question. You need to show proof of financial status for a US academic visa. If you get funding from the school, like I got a fully funded offer from my school, it's not a scholarship because I have to work. For my first semester, I was a teaching assistant. So I worked with a professor who was teaching a software engineering course. It's a 461. I prepared assignments for him. I graded assignments. I prepared the project. I graded the project and stuff like that. I was paid stipends. For this, my second semester, I'm a research assistant. So my supervisor got a funding from a company, asked me to come and work on the project. Well, the funding is paying my stipend and my school fees. So if you have a fully funded offer from a US school, you don't need to show you don't need a proof of financial status. But if there is any deficit, so when you get admission to a US school, the school gives you what we call I-20 document. The I-20 typically says this is how much this student needs to pay for 1 year for his studies. And then if the school is giving you some form of funding, this is how much you can give the students. If there's any deficit between these two, let's say your school fees is $30,000 and the school is giving you $10,000, you need to show the visa officer that you have $20,000, that kind of thing. Yeah. Wow, there are a lot of questions. For those asking questions about how to get legit information about scholarship, that's what Camp News Media is all about. Okay, you've known that one. We will inform you on right sources to get scholarship. Okay, stay tuned. Please tell them to stay glued to Camp News Media. Okay. If you need the recording, contact us, Camp News Media. Okay. If your CGPA is really low, can you do the GRE instead of the masters in Nigeria before you get admitted? Really, if your CGPA is really low and you're able to get a high GRE score, it can help, but I can't give you any guarantee. Really, admissions are so particular. Like, I can't even, what works for one person may not work for another person. I have a friend that she sent a mail to a supervisor that she wanted to work with the supervisor. Interestingly and luckily, the supervisor has a project that's Nigerian based, and having a Nigerian student work on that project is an added advantage to the supervisor. You see how something like, you could call that luck or grace, but you see how something as small as that would work in favor of this student. Like, it's more like, wow, the supervisor was actually looking for a Nigerian to work on this project, and then a Nigerian is reaching out to her. So I hope she gets admission, but hopefully she would. So there's really, I can't really say if it's going to work for you or not. You can try it out, but a master's degree in Nigeria would help. There are people that started master's degree in Nigeria while also applying for admissions in other countries. And if the one in other countries did not work, they start their master's degree in Nigeria. Like, I don't know if you guys know this guy from Photo Brain Buster. He finished with a first class in what they call it again, from photo biochemistry or something like that. But he started applying for PhD in the US or masters. He did not get it. He did his masters in Nigeria. He finished with a distinction, and then he got a PhD in the US with like a fully funded PhD in the US. So people, like even people with first class, some of them actually start doing a master's degree while waiting for an admission in the US, master's or PhD admission. Does the job have to be remote or physical? So it depends. Like, you have to be in most, like in US, like US means you have to work with the school. Like, the job needs to be offered by either the school or a business that is working in the school. So that is the thing. Whether you are working remotely or physically does not now matter, but you can't be schooling in the US and working with, say, Apple or Google. That's the difference. Although US system is actually very flexible. So as an international student, you have access to what we call CPT. CPT means that you can do an internship of up to 12 months with a company. So especially people doing PhD, they can every summer they can go and work with a company for 3 months. And when they do it 4 times, that's like 1 year. Some people, I have a friend that's doing master's degree. It's a 1-year master's. She started last for 2021. Throughout this year, she's going to work with Apple. And then next year, she's going to conclude her master's degree. You get, so it can be that flexible for you. I always visit Camp News Media. They are the ones hosting this program, and they have a lot in stock for you. Stay tuned to their pages. Please, before you round up, give me, okay. Please, does the graduate funding cover for your flight expenses? I think that depends on the school and the scholarship. Most scholarship bodies, especially those ones in Europe and UK, Chevening, Erasmus Mundus, please, you can Google more about Erasmus Mundus scholarship. It's one of the best scholarship programs you can apply for. I don't talk about it, but it's very good. So most scholarship bodies would refund your flight tickets. But if a university is what giving you funding, most universities don't cover flight ticket. They don't cover visa cost. But, and I'll say but, some schools actually do cover it. I know someone that got admitted to Stanford, and Stanford paid everything from visa fees to everything, to flight fees to everything. So it all depends. Some professors also pay everything. So there are some professors that you may want to work with, and then they'll tell you that they are going to cover all your flight expenses and stuff like that. So, but there is no rule there. So most times you really want to pay them yourselves. Wow, I think we've had an exciting session, and we are going to round up now. Thank you everyone for listening. Before we round up, I think I'll need to give the stage back to the organizers of this program so that they can do the closing. While they are doing the closing, I would want each of us, there are about 34 persons now remaining in this chat. Before you leave, between now and before you leave, I would want you to at least say something on the chat box about one thing that you learned from this session. Either one thing that you are going to do or one thing you learned from this session. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. And I know I spent a lot of time. I hope it was worth it. Yeah. So please, I'll be expecting to read them in the chat boxes.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm so much grateful for the knowledge and all that you've said. And I want to say a very big thank you to you. Okay, to our audience, I would like to, I was actually to do this thing at the beginning of this webinar, but for some reasons I was not able to log in, and that is because of some technical glitches. Okay, I would like to acquaint us with what Campus Media is all about. Okay, Campus Media is a campus hub that empowers students through information, that is school news, and also connects them to life-changing opportunities around the world. Okay, our mission, Campus Media empowers students through information and news about opportunities and scholarships to actualize their academic dreams and goals. We do extract intelligence from real-world experiences to provide the best information and opportunities to students. Our vision is that every student have access to beneficial information, opportunities, and tools needed for great impact in their academic lives, and thereby solving financial needs as students. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Campus Media. You can actually check up our site at www.campusmedia.com for opportunities and information. So that's what Campus Media stands for. And with time, we'll be updating you guys on our WhatsApp groups. So if you're not on our WhatsApp group, we do encourage you to join and always stay glued to Campus Media. So as regards to Scholarship Talk with Campus Media, Scholarship Talk with Campus Media is a program that comes up every 2 months. So provided that you are on our platforms, we'll be feeding you with information as regards to that. So in the next 2 months, we'll also be inviting another scholar on fully funded scholarship from Canada. I heard someone asking of information on scholarships about Canada. So in the next 2 months, we'll also be inviting a scholar from Canada to also share his experiences studying in Canada and also information about Canadian scholarships. So we do encourage you guys to stay glued to our platforms for updates on scholarships and opportunities around the world. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Thank you to our speaker. You've really, taught us a lot. So I don't know if there is any other question. We'd like to, call it a day at this junction. So I don't know if we have any question, and our speaker, I don't know if you can still talk more.